Hey there, junior scientists, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to be your friendly lab scientist today as we take a little journey into the microverse. Go ahead and securely fasten your virtual safety goggles right now, because today we are shrinking way down to explore the hidden microscopic world that makes up absolutely everything alive around us.
Let me start off by asking you something kind of wild. Think about yourself, a mighty, towering oak tree outside your window, and a tiny microscopic bacterium. On the surface, you literally couldn't look more different from each other. But what fundamental rules unite every single living thing on Earth? Like, what actually puts us all in the exclusive living club?
Okay, let's dive right into this. To officially be considered alive, an organism has to check off these 8 main characteristics. They need energy, they reproduce, they're highly organized, they respond to their environment, they grow, and they exchange materials, things like water and gases, with their surroundings. But I really want you to notice rule number 1, right up there at the top. Every living thing is made of cells. It is the absolute fundamental unit of life.
And to actually stay alive, all of those cells are constantly working overtime to fulfill rule number 4, which is maintaining homeostasis. Homeostasis is basically the ultimate balancing act. It's how organisms, from complex humans all the way down to single-celled bacteria, maintain a stable, balanced internal environment, completely regardless of what crazy changes might be happening on the outside.
The crazy thing is, for most of human history, we had absolutely no idea this whole cellular world even existed. We just couldn't see it. Our discovery of this invisible universe was entirely dependent on early microscope technology. Basically, every time our lenses got a little bit better, we made massive scientific breakthroughs, stretching from the 1600s all the way to modern genetic theories in 1970. Just take a look at this incredibly simple handheld device. Back in 1673, a Dutch microscope maker named Anton van Leeuwenhoek used this exact style of instrument. He literally pointed it at pond water and, get this, scrapings from his own teeth. Gross, I know. But because of this simple little lens, he became the very first person in history to view living organisms.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how the word cell actually came to be. A few years earlier, in 1665, an English scientist named Robert Hooke was examining these super thin slices of cork under his own microscope. When Hooke looked at the dead plant cell walls of the cork, they looked like these tiny little repeating boxes. So he called them cells, because they reminded him of the small square rooms that monks lived in.
So as our microscopes got better and better, we realized the microverse is essentially divided into 2 main neighborhoods, or cell types. First, we have prokaryotic cells, like bacteria. These are the ancient, simplest, absolute first cells on Earth, and they don't have a nucleus. Then, on the other side, we have eukaryotic cells, which make up plants and animals. These are highly complex and just packed with membrane-bound organelles.
But even within that complex eukaryotic neighborhood, there are some pretty major differences. If you compare an animal cell to a plant cell, yeah, they share a lot of the exact same machinery, but you can think of the plant cell like a factory with a few extra specialized buildings. Specifically, plant cells have a rigid cell wall for extra support, and chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are basically specialized solar panels that use sunlight to make food through photosynthesis.
To really wrap our heads around these microscopic factories, it totally helps to group the cell's internal parts, we call those parts organelles, by their specific jobs. Let's start by looking at the structural support team. These are the parts that keep the cell's physical shape intact and hold the whole shebang together.
First up is the cell wall, which is found just outside the cell membrane in plants. Think of it as this armor-like, rigid outer layer that actively supports and protects the cell. Then, inside the cell, we have the cytoplasm. This is a jelly-like substance found in all cells. It creates the absolutely perfect suspended environment, providing a medium for all those vital chemical reactions to happen safely.
Let's move on and see how this builds into our next group, the power and production team. If the cytoplasm is the factory floor, these organelles are the managers, the energy makers, and the shipping department.
Here's a super quick summary of these crucial factory roles. The nucleus, that's the manager. It securely holds all the hereditary DNA. The mitochondria acts as the power plant, constantly burning glucose to release ATP. That's the cellular energy that keeps literally everything running. And the Golgi bodies, which kind of look like a stack of flattened pancakes, act as the cellular shipping department. They modify, sort, and package molecules so they can be transported right out of the cell.
Now you might be wondering,
How in the world did cells get all these amazing, complex parts in the first place? Well, gather round, junior scientists, because this brings us to one of the most incredible stories in all of biology, the endosymbiotic theory. Once upon a time, billions of years ago, ancient, simple, microscopic cells roamed the primordial seas.
It was a pretty wild, eat-or-be-eaten microscopic world, where bigger cells would routinely just swallow up smaller cells for food. But one day, something absolutely magical happened. A larger ancient cell swallowed up a smaller, free-living cell, but instead of digesting it, it kept it alive. They started working together. They literally became roommates.
Over millions and millions of years, these tiny, helpful roommates completely merged with their hosts. And guess what those ancient swallowed cells evolved into? The very same mitochondria and chloroplasts we literally just learned about. The mighty power plants and solar panels of today's complex cells were once totally independent living organisms. In 1970, an American biologist named Lynn Margulis outlined this theory, and she found the ultimate, thrilling twist ending to prove it. She pointed out that if you look inside mitochondria and chloroplasts today, they actually have their very own completely separate DNA from the rest of the cell. I mean, wow, it is the absolute perfect evidence that they were once free living on their own. Okay, so now that we know how these amazing factories were built, how did things actually move in and out of them to fulfill that rule of exchanging materials? Well, that happens largely through diffusion. Diffusion is just the process where molecules intermingle due to their kinetic energy, moving from areas of high concentration, meaning where they're really crowded together, to areas of lower concentration, until they are equally spread out.
If that sounds a little abstract, think about it with this real-life household example. Imagine someone is baking fresh chocolate chip cookies in the kitchen. The scent molecules are super concentrated right near the oven. But thanks to kinetic energy, those molecules naturally spread out into the areas of lower concentration, allowing you to smell them all the way from your bedroom. That is diffusion in action.
Now, there is a very special, very important type of diffusion called osmosis. Osmosis is specifically the diffusion of water across a selectively permeable membrane, just like a cell membrane. Water basically moves to balance out the concentration of particles on both sides of that membrane.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how osmosis works in real life. If you have an old, wilted, kind of floppy carrot in the fridge, its cells have lost water and shriveled up. But if you take that carrot and place it in a glass of fresh water, osmosis occurs. Water rushes from the glass right across the cell membranes and into the plant cells, plumping that carrot right back up and restoring its rigid structure.
All right, junior scientists, let's see how much of this you've absorbed. It is pop quiz time. Let's test your knowledge of the cellular factory. Question 1. Which organelle acts as the power plant to burn glucose and release ATP energy? Go ahead and shout it out if you know it.
Did you get it? The answer is the mitochondria. Fantastic job if you got that right. Remember, highly active cells, like the muscle cells in your legs right this very second, are packed with thousands of mitochondria to keep you moving and energetic.
Okay, final pop quiz of the explainer. And fair warning, this is a tricky one about cell size and volume. I want you to think about a massive, multi-ton elephant and a tiny little squeaking mouse. Are the individual cells inside the massive elephant bigger than the cells inside the tiny mouse?
Fact check time. They are actually the exact same size. No way, right? Elephants just have tremendously more cells than a mouse does. You see, if a single cell gets too large, its volume increases way faster than its surface area, which means it literally can't exchange waste and food fast enough to survive. So, I'll leave you with this provocative thought for the day. You, a giant elephant, a tiny mouse, and a towering oak tree are all constructed from trillions of the exact same tiny, perfectly sized biological building blocks. How incredible is that? Keep those safety goggles handy, keep asking great questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.